Welcome and thank you for your purchase. The purpose of this short video is to orient you to some of the main features of the Home Finance Ledger and Budget Planner. At first glance, this spreadsheet may look a little intimidating because there are a lot of different sheets in it. Just know that you won't ever be using all of them at one time, and once you understand how they all work together, it will make sense why there are so many. When you first open the spreadsheet, this is what you will see. First, along the bottom, you will see a number of different colored tabs. If you are new to Excel, each tab is connected to a single page called a worksheet, or often just called a sheet. The first tab, labeled How To, contains written instructions for you that you can refer to when you have questions, or if you are not sure how to enter a certain transaction. The remaining sheets are divided into four main groups of sheets. The first of these is only a single sheet called the General Ledger, which you are looking at now. The second group consists of account registers for all of the various accounts you might have, such as your checking account or savings account. These tabs are multicolored. The third group consists of 13 black tabs, which are your monthly budget and annual budget worksheets. The fourth group consists of 3 green tabs that include your balance sheet, income and expense statement, and a tax report. Now, let's return back here to the General Ledger, which is the heart of the system. The General Ledger keeps track of all of the transactions in all of your accounts, such as your checking account, savings account, credit card account, and so on, all in one place. It is also where you categorize transactions into income and expense accounts, or categories. Most columns in the General Ledger represent specific accounts, except for the first few columns, which are for recording the date and a description of the transaction. Each row in the General Ledger represents a single transaction. An account can be a physical one, like a bank account, or one that exists on paper only, like a reimbursable account, or an income or expense account. You could also think of income and expense accounts as categories. The names of these accounts are listed in the header row here, which is row 7. The header row labels in row 1 up here are more like general groupings of accounts, such as checking accounts, income accounts, and expense accounts, and so on. And I'll just scroll across so that you can see what I mean. These are the income accounts, and these are the expense accounts, and so on. And we'll go back to the beginning. Just remember that the basic rule for the General Ledger is that when you show an amount coming into or going out of your checking account, you also have to show that same amount coming into or going out of another account somewhere, either an expense account, an income account, or another physical bank account. I used the checking account as an example here, but this rule applies to all accounts. For example, a purchase at Costco is shown as a negative amount in your checking account column because it makes your checking account balance go down. And we'll put it as a positive amount in your grocery expense account because it makes your expense account balance go up. If we scroll over to the grocery expense account, which is right here, and put $100 in there, that makes your amount of groceries that you've spent in the year go up. Notice that when you enter this expense transaction at Costco, that you get some red error messages on the left side of the screen. So if we just delete this $100 we put in there, you'll see over here on the left, negative $100. These are just meant to alert you that once you've entered this transaction in one account, such as your checking account, you need to enter it again in another account, in this case, your grocery expense account. Every row has to balance out, and when they do balance out, you'll get this green balance message here. The other thing you'll notice is that when you enter your grocery expense in the checking account column, that this red alert message at the top reminds you that you also have to enter this transaction in your checking account register. All we need to do now is go to our checking account register and enter this same transaction there. Each of these account register worksheets contains more than one register, so you can keep track of up to 3 checking accounts all in one place if you wanted to. Just a quick note about multiple accounts. If we click back to the general ledger, you'll notice that there is only one checking account column that's visible there. When you first receive this spreadsheet, the other 2 checking account columns in the general ledger are hidden. If you want to unhide them, simply left-click the letter G in this column, hold the mouse button down, move your mouse to the right, release the button, then move your mouse down to this shaded area, right-click with your cursor anywhere in this shaded area and select Unhide. And now you'll see there are 2 other checking account columns here corresponding to 2 other checking accounts you might want to use. To hide any column you don't want to use, simply highlight the column by left-clicking the tiny letter at the top, right-click with your cursor anywhere in the shaded area and select Hide, and that will hide that column. Now back to the checking account register. One rationale for keeping a separate account register like this is that it allows you to reconcile your hard copy statement, and reconciling allows you to catch transactions that have been entered twice, or that have been missed, or that have been entered incorrectly. One day when this spreadsheet is turned into standalone software, it will not be necessary to enter transactions twice like this. One downside to using Excel is the tendency for error or inconsistency. To overcome this downside, I have built in checks and balances, alert messages that tell you if you are missing vital information. If you have entered a transaction in the general ledger, but not in the corresponding account register, you will get a red alert message in both places, as it shows here. If we enter that $100 now in Costco, and I just pre-entered it already just to save time, and we put that $100 in here, now you'll get a green message that says both registers are balanced. If on the general ledger you have indicated an expense as coming out of a specific account, but you have not entered it again in another account, you will get a red alert message here again. And also if we delete that and go back to the general ledger, you will also get that red alert message here. This ensures that the information in your spreadsheet is always accurate and error-free. After the account registers, you will find the annual budget and 12 monthly budget worksheets. Much of the work of creating the budget worksheets has already been done for you. The income and expense categories are drawn automatically from your general ledger, from the amounts that are entered in the general ledger. So let's click on the January budget worksheet here. Now, actual amounts earned and spent in each category are drawn automatically from the general ledger. All you have to do in the budget worksheets is enter the amounts that you plan to earn or spend in each category in the month or throughout the year. I will be making a separate video on using the budget worksheets, so please refer to that for more information. But you can see, just as a quick example, I've entered in the I put that in the wrong spot. Under employment income, let's say you plan to earn $10,000, so you enter $10,000 in the planned column right there. And then I'll show you, we've already entered that $100 we spent at Costco on groceries. And so if you scroll down to the groceries, it's under regular expenses, and it's under personal living expenses. And if you scroll down to the groceries right here, under actual, in the actual column, now it says we've spent $100. In the planned column, I've entered that we plan to spend $1,000 on groceries in the month. And the difference column tells us how much of that planned amount we still have available to spend. As I said, there will be a separate video on the budget worksheets that you can watch. After the budget worksheets are your reports. And I'll click to the end here, and the first of these is the balance sheet. This tells you at a glance the current balances in all of your accounts. After the balance sheet, there is an income and expense statement, and this tells you what you have earned and spent in each category, both annually and by month. And finally, there is an income tax return worksheet that you can use at tax time to help organize your receipts and information in preparation for tax filing. The general ledger automatically populates the income and expense statement and the budget worksheets. The specific account registers automatically populate the balance sheet. Now, just a few tips and rules before we go. Once you've got a handle on these tips and rules, you will find it much easier to proceed with using the Home Finance Ledger and Budget Planner. So let's click back to the general ledger. Some of the cells in the spreadsheet are locked when you receive it, meaning that you cannot enter data in these cells. Here's the rule. If a cell has a white background, you can enter data in it. If a cell has a colored or shaded background, it is locked and cannot be changed. Shaded cells contain hidden formulas. A lot of these shaded cells have content that is dependent on the content in other cells in the same sheet or in other sheets. If a formula in one of these cells was accidentally deleted, certain functions elsewhere in the spreadsheet would not work properly. This is one of the reasons why the sheet is locked. The spreadsheet is intended to be used in this locked format. All of the cells that can be altered or that can have data entered in them are unlocked. As long as the locked cells stay locked, then essential functions cannot be deleted accidentally. Now, small red triangles in the upper right corner of some cells alert you to comments that contain instructions for entering data in certain cells. So let me see if I can, for example, right here you can see a small red triangle in the top right corner of this cell that is labeled T. And if you hover your mouse over that cell, a comment box comes up and tells you what to enter. In this case, this is a tax-related column. If the transaction is tax-related, then you can enter a T in this column. And that will help you as you fill out the income tax return report at the end of the year. In the general ledger and in the savings goal columns in the savings account register, you enter an amount as positive if it increases the relevant account balance of the column you're in. For example, here in the checking account column. And you enter an amount as negative if it decreases the account balance of the column you're in. In simple terms, in the checking account column, an expense will make the balance in your checking account go down, so enter it as negative. In the clothing account column, if we scroll over to the clothing expense account, which is here, an expense will make the balance of what you have spent on clothing go up, so enter it as positive. A refund on a clothing purchase will make the total amount you have spent on clothing go down, so you enter a refund as negative. Okay. Now if we go to the checking account register, most account registers, such as the checking account registers, have separate debit and credit columns, so you don't have to worry about entering positive or negative numbers there. Just enter the number as a positive in its relevant column. For example, an expense goes in the debit column as a positive. Income or inflows go in the credit column as a positive. Now let's click back to the general ledger. Use the right and left arrow keys on your keyboard to quickly navigate across the row between accounts when you're in the general ledger. So I'm pressing the right arrow key now, and I'm pressing the left arrow key now, and that takes you quickly across all of the different accounts. Once you have a number of transactions entered, you can press the Enter New Transaction button from wherever you are, and it will automatically jump the cursor to the next empty cell in the date column. So if I click on that, you can see it goes to the next empty cell, and I can enter my next transaction. Like that. Okay. When you are in the account registers, if we go back to the checking account, you can press the next register button and the previous register buttons to quickly navigate to the second account register and back to the first one again. The third one, you can you click the next register button twice to go to the third account, and click on the previous register to go back to the first one. This is if you have multiple bank accounts of the same type. You might have 2 checking accounts, for example, that you want to track in the same file. Once you get the hang of entering transactions manually, you will find it goes relatively quickly, even when you're entering them twice. Back in the general ledger, you'll notice that all of the bank account names are shaded blue up here, which means you can't change them in the general ledger. To name an account, you must do so from the specific account register. So you'll notice here the checking account doesn't yet have a name. So if you click on the checking account and we click at the top here in this cell D1, that's where we enter the name of the account. And you can call it anything you like. You can call it My Checking, or you can just call it Checking if you want. And then we go back to the general ledger, and now you'll see that that name appears in that column, in that header row. Yes, once you've entered a name for the account in the specific account register, the name will automatically appear on the general ledger as well. Also, most of the income and expense account subcategories can be renamed to anything you like, since, as you'll see here, the background of these cells is white. But you'll notice that the main categories, such as service charges, if we move on to here, service charges, transportation, utilities and telecom, personal living expenses, and so forth, cannot be changed. This is because these income and expense columns are intricately tied into your budget worksheets, and if you made changes to the main categories in the general ledger, it would impact how the budget worksheets operate. But you can change these subcategories that are here, since they are in a cell that is in a white background. Also notice on the general ledger that row 6 shows you the current balance at a glance in each of your accounts. I'll scroll back to the beginning using the left arrow key, and note that the current balance in your checking account means how much money is presently in that account. For the income and expense accounts, and I'll scroll back to the right again, the current balance means something different. Specifically, it means how much money has been earned or spent in each category so far for the year to date. Well, that's about it for the first tutorial. If you have any questions, please refer to the written guide, or feel free to email me at drcobb@shaw.ca. I hope you enjoy using the Home Finance Ledger and Budget Planner.